All right, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Mission Apollo, take off. This is episode 6. Today I'm joined by a maybe new face to some people. You probably already recognize the name. Maxwell, the customer service expert. You've probably talked to him. He's probably helped you out. Probably even helped you choose a new scooter, which is the topic of today's discussion. We wanted to give a guide on how to choose the right scooter. What's the right scooter for you? How do you know what's going to be best for you? How do you pick? So today I have Maxwell. How you doing, Max?
I'm doing all right. Pleasure to be here.
Pleasure to have you. Is it all right if I call you Max for short?
Yeah, you can go ahead.
All right, and I call you Max for long.
No, that's banned.
Okay, I'll just call you Maxwell then. But yeah, so I guess it can be hard to choose the right scooter for people these days, and it's there's a lot of choices, a lot of different brands, different models, even within Apollo ourselves. There's the Air, there's the Explorer, the Phantom, the Ghost. How do you go about choosing a scooter?
Yeah, it's tough for sure. There are a whole lot of options out there on the market, not just within us, but within different brands. There are a whole host of different categorizations, and places like ESG, they've tried to break it down and categorize them into different classes, like with cars, but it's still kind of difficult to get your mind around the world of electric scooters, especially if you're first just getting into it. It's a lot to take in. Um, Generally, what we advise here, the first step is always to take a look at your needs. Why are you buying a scooter? Why are you looking into this? And that's where we start from. We start from there and we go towards the rest of scooter buying. Once you know your needs, picking the right scooter for you is pretty straightforward.
Makes sense, yeah. So let's say you're a new scooter owner, like it's gonna be your very first one. You've never tried an electric scooter before. You want it maybe mostly for commuting to and from work, a short commute. Where do you kind of go from there to help people narrow it down?
So for people that need a commuter scooter, what we generally recommend is starting in kind of the lower end of the range that we sell. Of course, we're partial to our own scooters. We think we sell the best products here.
No bias
But
at
when
all.
it comes to, I mean, we got the label on us. We gotta have pride.
No bias at all.
But what we recommend for people that are just starting out, unless they're real adventurous and super brave, is kind of taking a look at the lower end of our range, the single motor models, models that we advertise explicitly as commuters. So depending on the length of the commute, the kind of hills that they'll be tackling, these would be scooters like the Apollo Air and the Air Pro, the Apollo City, and the Apollo Explorer, all of which have single motors, all motors at the rear, and can offer the kind of portability and terrain adaptability that you would expect on a normal commute, which is to say roads, people riding on roads, up and down roads.
Yeah. So not everyone needs the Ghost or the Phantom, right? Is that what you're saying?
It's true. Not everyone needs the Ghost or the Phantom. And some people would find the Ghost or the Phantom intimidating right out of the box. The Ghost and the Phantom, beyond being very powerful scooters, are also heavy scooters. They're large scooters. They can be difficult to move from point A to point B without riding. And for people that need to take scooters up and down long flights of stairs on a regular basis, take the scooters on public transportation, it might not be the best option for them. Now, they're great scooters, don't get me wrong, but the best option for those people would probably be something more compact and a little lighter.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, those scooters definitely, they fold down, you can lock them into place, but not necessarily the most portable options, are they?
For sure, for sure. And we try and make steps towards making those scooters more compact and portable, like the folding handlebars on the Ghost and the latches on the stem on each of those models. But it is difficult to carry a 60, 70, almost 80-pound object up a flight of stairs. And they're large scooters too, especially the Phantom doesn't have a folding handlebar. And while it is an absolute pleasure to ride, it can be difficult when you're trying to, say, store it under your desk at the office for the day, or try and fit it under a bus or subway seat. That can be super difficult.
Yeah, as much fun as they are, yeah, especially if you live in the city like maybe Montreal and you've got a 3-floor walk up, 5-floor walk up, you're not going to be carrying 60, 70 pounds of scooter up every time, unless maybe you have a ramp on the stairs, you can just ride it up.
Or a nice elevator or something
There
like
you
that.
go. So who would you recommend the Ghost and the Phantom for then? Like what kind of riders are those meant for?
Generally, the riders that we get for those scooters are riders with more experience riding scooters.
Hmm.
They're picking these scooters maybe as a commuter, but if they're picking it as a commuter, they're living in a low level area. They have a ground floor where they can store it and put it away.
Storage room.
Um, yeah, or a garage or something like that. Maybe they
Hmm.
live in a house. Um,
Fancy.
you can tell we live in Montreal. That's ooh, a house unheard of.
I haven't seen
Spend
a house in
years
5 years.
like Robinson Crusoe out here.
Yeah.
But generally, if people are looking at a scooter for commuting reasons, they're looking at those scooters because they meet their accessibility needs in terms of being able to move the scooters from point A to point B.
Mhm.
And we find that people that are using those scooters as a regular commuter are doing so because they are looking for something that can climb hills. That's the great advantage of dual
Mm,
motor scooters when you're
yeah.
trying to use them as a transportation option. The
Mhm.
dual motor options, especially in cities like San Francisco, Seattle, a lot of the West Coast where a city can be super hilly, those are the go-tos because they
Mhm.
can fly up and down hills.
Oh yeah.
Um, we've all seen that video from Alien Rides where they take the Ghost up California Street, and that's the power of dual motors. It provides excellent acceleration and torque, and
Mhm.
that is the commuter scooter option. For people who are just looking for the most amount of fun possible that they can have on a scooter, if you're looking for a ridiculous amount of adrenaline, that's also kind of the option that people go for. We don't find too many people who are like, yeah, this is my sixth or seventh scooter. I've been riding, like, say, the eMove Cruiser or the 010 for a little while, and I want to step up. Let me go with the city. No, they're going to go with a dual motor option
Yeah.
because they want that extra power and they want to make that leap into the performance market.
Makes sense. Makes sense. You mentioned the hills like San Francisco and Seattle and everything like that. How about a scooter like the Explorer? Would you recommend
I
that though?
I think the Explorer sits at a great spot in our lineup because the
Mhm.
Explorer, it's a single motor scooter, but it has a 1,000 watt continuous rated motor. So it has a very
Mhm.
powerful motor in it.
Mhm.
And that means that for hills that aren't the most ridiculous hills imaginable, the Explorer will more than do the job. The Explorer is a great hill climber.
Mhm.
Montreal, I can say this from personal experience because I've used the Explorer as a regular commuting scooter. Um, Montreal can be a little hilly, especially if you're going into the area directly surrounding the park in the middle of the city, which is a mountain. It's a mountain. Uh,
The one big hill that we have here in Montreal.
yeah, we looked at something a little taller than the rest of everything else.
Yeah.
Yes, a mountain. Um, if you live kind of in that area, you do have to bring the scooter up hills, and a scooter like the light or the air or the city can handle the two, but the Explorer will handle those hills with ease. So I think the Explorer is a
Mm.
great hill climber, but even the Explorer, there are hills that the Explorer can't climb that the dual motor models can.
Of course. Yeah, it never hurts to have dual motors, but I guess it's also going to kind of depend on the size of the rider too. And that's maybe another important thing to take into consideration. So after you figure out what the customer, what the person needs, and like what
Yeah.
they plan on using the scooter for, what else do you ask for? What other kind of information do you try to narrow it down?
So we're looking for primarily usage. That, of course, is our main factor. What is the needs that you want your scooter to meet? And part
Mhm.
of the needs of a rider is being able to carry themselves.
Mm.
Um, Not just themselves, but their stuff. If you got a bag, some people like to use these scooters grocery shopping. Uh, we've even seen customers retrofit trailers onto the back of their scooters so that they can haul weight with it. And it's incredible to see. People do great stuff with these scooters.
Oh yeah.
And
Dedicated community.
yeah, people are super dedicated. And the consideration there for a lot of these riders is, can the scooter carry you? Can the scooter not only carry you, but get the speed and range that you are looking for? So
Right.
if you just got a lot of stuff, if you're carrying around a 20-30 pound backpack with you all the time, if you're planning on using the scooter to carry large items a good distance, you're going to want to take that into consideration. The way that we test our scooters in terms of range and top speed is we're testing these numbers with around 150 pounds of load on the scooter, 150, 160 pounds.
Yeah.
And people need to take that into consideration, because if you add more weight than that on the scooter, the top speed is going to decrease, the range is going to decrease, and this is expected. Any scooter on the market is tested in similar conditions. It's something that consumers need to be aware of when they make their purchase, because you don't want to buy a scooter and then get it a couple months later. God, I hope not a couple months later.
A couple of days later, a week later.
A couple months later. Been on pre-order for too long here, Sean. A couple of weeks or maybe a month later, and then find out that the scooter can't carry them the way that they want to carry them. Our general rule of thumb, and the rule of thumb that I use, is for every like 20 pounds or so, take 10% off of the advertised number. I think that is it's a balance between a liberal and a conservative estimate. It's kind of a middle of the road estimate. I know that ESG and other sources use an even more conservative estimate, where they're like, if you weigh over 200 pounds, or if you're carrying over 200 pounds of load on a scooter, cut the ranges in half. I think that's overdoing it. But you should expect, if you're carrying a large amount of load, to see the top speeds decrease, and to account for that in the scooter buying. So if you are, say, looking at the city, you're putting 230 pounds of load on it per se, and that's including all of your stuff. You're probably not going to get the advertised top speed of 40 kilometers per hour. You're probably going to get closer to like 35, 30, somewhere in that range. And if you want that top speed, then the solution there is to take the step up to a scooter that's more powerful, like the Explorer, or maybe even the dual motor models that we sell. That would be the next step, because those are the scooters that have power in excess of what you're looking for, and can thus meet your needs appropriately.
Makes sense. Yeah, we're not exactly mathematicians, but an extra 20 pounds, take off 10%, that seems like a pretty reasonable equation, I think. Makes sense.
Yeah, and this is above around 150 pounds of weight.
Right.
So always use that as the baseline. If you're putting 150 pounds of weight on the scooter, then you should get around, give or take riding conditions, around what we advertise. But the higher you go, the more your speed and range are going to change. And the same is true in reverse, by the way. If you have, like, say you're putting 130 pounds of load on the scooter. We have riders that weigh less than 100 pounds, and they absolutely fly on these things.
Yeah, they go faster than our advertised top speeds, I think, sometimes.
By quite a bit, too, occasionally. I was talking to a guy earlier today talking about how he would get 40 miles per hour on the Ghost going uphill. And my suspicion there, I didn't, 40 miles per hour on the Ghost. And he's probably not putting a lot of load on the scooter. He's, of course, doing everything else that he needs to maximize top speed, fully charging his battery, making sure that he's riding in ideal conditions where the temperature is nice, as it is right now when we're filming this in the summer, and just making sure that everything is nice and going. It's a new scooter as well. But if you're riding with a small amount of load, you can exceed our top speeds, because we tested a certain amount of load, and that's the nature of personal electric vehicles. They're really susceptible to fluctuation in terms of specs when you put more or less weight on them.
Yeah. So we do say most of our scooters, they can handle up to 265, 300 pounds, but that doesn't necessarily mean that's the ideal weight, I guess, right? For each scooter. That just means it's the maximum load that scooter can handle.
Yes.
But you will probably see some differences in specs and performance.
For sure. And the way that we test that load is, that's the load where if you rode for an extended amount of time, anything below that, we wouldn't expect anything to break. Like you're not going to damage the rims or the suspension
Yeah.
until you exceed that load while riding.
Yeah.
But in terms of the specs on our scooter, we're testing the specs at a different load than the maximum.
Maximum, yeah, yeah. Okay, so needs of the user, maybe size of the rider as well. What else do you find is important to ask?
I like to ask kind of just why, what brought them into the market, and that really influences what they're trying to do. Some people come in with a ton of research. They have been looking at scooters for months, occasionally years even, and then they settle on our brand and they reach out to us to talk about it. These people already know a lot about the scooter and they just want to have some clarifying details they can't already find on our website. Some
Confirmation
people,
that what they're buying is the right thing.
yeah. Some people, on the other hand, like maybe heard of our brand yesterday and want to reach out to us to talk to us. Hey, Apollo, what's up? They just want to know what we have in our lineup. They want to know the basics of electric scooter riding, and they want to take a look at that as well. And for those people, I like to give a bit more context to it. People asking questions about how do you actually ride these things? How do you maintain balance? Can I do this with it? Can I do that with it? It's important to situate yourself when you're buying an electric scooter into what an electric scooter can and can't do, both between models, but in general. And electric scooters, they're certainly coming a long way fast, especially with our top of the line innovations like the Phantom. We're very proud of the distance electric scooters are coming, but they're personal electric vehicles. They still have a ways to go. The market is maturing right now, and it's exciting to see. But right now, these are scooters that they can only do so much. They have a limited range. They have a limited top speed. You're riding them on bike paths, and there's only so much you can do with that. So kind of situating people, making sure that they understand that is super important.
Yeah, it's personal preference too, like what they are going to find important. If they want something that goes fast, something that can be more portable. These are all important too.
For sure.
When do you ask about like maybe price or like do you ask them again like which specs and performance is most important to them and kind of get an idea of what they want to get out of their scooter?
Yeah, for sure. I talk to them about that. A lot of the times people come in with a set budget and the price is the most prominent thing on our website. For any scooter, the first thing you see is the price. So most people come in and they can get a good idea of where the price of a scooter's at. And if not, it's super easy to point page or tell them what the price is. That can be pretty straightforward. Budget's always a top line concern. Beyond that, personal preference is something that you kind of have to suss out with them if they haven't already decided. Talking to them about what's important to them in terms of riding, in terms of what kind of performance that they're looking on the scooter. And this ties into everything else that we've talked about. The conditions that they're riding in, et cetera, et cetera. Conversation and having the conversations, well, like, what are your needs? What load would you be putting on the scooter? Where will you be riding this? How long of a distance? All of that kind of coalesces and helps us figure out where their priorities lie in the process. And maybe over the course of a conversation, someone will figure out that, well, range is a priority, or maybe they really want the top speed on a scooter, or maybe they're looking maybe not to go a long distance, but still kind of portable, maybe something in the niche of an Explorer, for example.
Okay, let's try some. Let's play a little game.
You have a whole list of options there.
Let's play a little game here. I'm going to give you maybe some descriptions of a hypothetical person, and you can recommend a scooter for me. We'll start kind of based on myself. Let's say I'm roughly 5'9", about 150 pounds. I want to use my scooter mostly for commuting, which is a pretty short commute. Let's say like 5 kilometers, 10 kilometers round trip, but also for a little bit of fun on the weekends. What would you recommend for me? Oh, and I'm not brand new to scooters, so I have a little bit of experience. What would you
Not
recommend?
brand new. Probably ridden a scooter like the Xiaomi or the Segways. Maybe you tried one of the rental scooters,
Sure.
maybe a
Yeah.
Burger Line.
Yeah.
Um, in that case, I would kind of point you towards the upper end of the single motor models. Take a look at the City. City's a nice scooter,
Hmm.
but probably your best fit is going to be the Explorer. Still
Okay.
relatively light, still relatively portable. A nice folding stem that has that vertical alignment for easy one hand carrying, but
Hmm.
also a scooter that's going to be a step up from the scooters that you probably have already ridden. And if you're looking to just scoot around, the Explorer gets great real world range, and it's if you're looking at taking it out for a day, and if you're looking at kind of not quite getting into what a performance scooter can do, but getting into the top speeds, getting into like just kissing 30 miles per hour,
Yeah.
then that is the scooter I would recommend towards those sorts of people. Although maybe they want a more compact scooter, something a little smaller and a little less powerful. In that case, I would recommend the City.
Hmm. Both really good options, and both I have used myself. And yeah, honestly, for me, that's probably perfect. Okay, let's say I'm 6'3", like 200 pounds, but I'm brand new to scooters. So I want something that's going to be able to move me around, but mostly for fun.
Mostly for fun. All right, so there are two tacks you could take here. One is kind of the safer route, and that would be the Explorer. The
Hmm.
Explorer would be more than able to get that person from point A to point B. Got a lot of power, and it's got a nice wide board. If someone's 6'3", I'm also going to bet that they have pretty large feet, probably wearing like a size 12, 13, 14, somewhere in that range. And the 9-inch wide deck on the Explorer really does help with that.
Mm.
It's a super comfortable ride. But if they're looking at a scooter strictly for fun, if that's the primary reason,
Yeah.
maybe they should try a dual motor model. Maybe they should look into it. And I wouldn't say that this should be their primary focus, because they are
Hmm.
new to scooters and dual motor models can be a little bit intimidating. But maybe they should take a look, because they're first, the fun factor of a dual motor model is unmatched. Once you ride a dual motor
Mm.
scooter, it's the sheer torque on these things. It's an absolute blast. You're flying up hills. You're
Yeah.
bobbing and weaving around the cyclists. It's so much fun to ride these things. Um, in addition, the stems on dual motor models, the ones that we sell, the Ghost and the Phantom, are taller. Really, when it comes to height, you want to look at the deck to upper portion of the handlebar distance. And for our single motor models, they're all around 38 inches or so. For the dual motor models with the solid stems, they're all around 40 to 42 inches. And
Okay.
that's a small difference, but it can make a difference in terms
Yeah.
of rideability. Um,
Depending
the
on what
larger
they feel comfortable, like where they hold the handlebars.
Yeah, and that, it varies by person too. One of our co-founders, Matchek, he's I believe 6'1" or 6'2". And even the smaller scooters that we sell, he finds perfectly comfortable to ride. It's a
Mhm.
matter of personal preference.
Yeah.
But I would bet that someone of that size probably also able to carry a good bit of weight as well, which means that the portability factor of a dual motor model would be less of an issue. And again, if this is a customer that's looking for fun, you you are pressed to match the fun of riding a dual motor electric scooter. That is
I remember
that
the
is
first time I tried
pure
out the
joy,
Ghost
my
and the Phantom. Oh man.
well, the great thing about dual motor models is you can always ride them slower.
Hmm.
We have
Yeah.
our advanced settings options. Of course, you can just pull on the throttle less. You can always ride a dual motor option slower. So if he wants to work into it, he can just like bop around in single motor mode and stay in gear one. That's totally fine. And
Okay.
then, by virtue of having a dual motor model, if fun is the priority here, he'll be able to work his way up.
Okay. Let's say then, like, I'm still the same person, but I don't really care about using it for fun then. I just want to commute to and from work. I have to wear a suit. I don't want to ride my bikes. I don't want to get sweaty, and I don't want to take public transit because, it's too crowded right now. And with, obviously COVID concerns, that's important to me. But my commute is short, so I need something that's portable, and I have to bring it in my apartment elevator. What would you suggest then? And I
Have to
don't
bring
really
it
care
into
about
your
going
apartment
fast either.
elevator. Little short. It would depend on the length of the commute. If you really want to avoid public transportation, let's say we stuck with that like 5 kilometer commute before.
Hmm.
Um, Again, I would kind of go with the Explorer or the City. If fun is not a priority, being compact is a priority.
Yeah.
Um, then those are kind of the models you want to go for. And it's really the middle of the range that's going to get a lot of these.
Hmm.
Well, I'm this, but I'm this, but I'm this, but I'm this. A lot of the cases where people have to weigh
Yeah.
a bunch of different considerations, those are going to kind of wind up in the middle of the range. For people
Okay.
that are like brand new to scooters or like trying to give their kids a gift, for example, those
Mhm.
are the kind of people we see buying the Air or the Light, the entry level models. And for people that are super experienced and really, really do want that, the power that the Phantom provides, that's who we see
Mhm.
gravitating towards the upper end. Or not even people with experience, but people who just want a scooter that can go, a real powerful one.
Yeah.
Uh, then that's where we see the top of the line people gravitating towards.
Okay. And maybe who would you say is the target audience for the Air?
For the Air, it's definitely people who have never ridden an electric scooter before. Or maybe they've tried their hands on it once or twice. They've borrowed a
Mhm.
friend's. They've used a rental when the rentals were out. And they're looking to dip their toes in. First
Mhm.
step in scooter ownership, that's going to be the Air. And the Air is really, it's fine-tuned for the needs of that user. It's a scooter that has a really solid build, so it's not going to give you problems. Um, and it's not super powerful, so you're not going to get overwhelmed with it right off the bat. The control system is super intuitive, still a relatively compact scooter. A super nice scooter all around, but very much an entry-level model.
Okay. Let's say one more profile here. Let's say I'm 5'5", like 120 pounds, but I've never actually ridden a scooter before, but I have lots of experience with maybe motorcycles, even a electric skateboard. I love going fast. I love the adrenaline. I love more extreme sports. Maybe this is kind of an obvious one.
I would definitely, if the person is looking at an electric scooter, and I would want to clarify here, are you looking at the scooter for like your commute, or are you looking at it to have a blast? And it sounds like based on that person's past purchasing history,
Yeah.
they're looking to have a good time with the scooter.
A new
Uh,
toy. A new toy.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. They're looking at they're looking at having fun here,
Yeah.
and for that you gotta go with the Phantom. You gotta maybe go with the Ghost, but you gotta go with the Phantom. Not just because it's gonna be super powerful, but because it's going to feel so nice. And with a
Mm.
person who's riding all of these other BMWs, they're going to be able to experience a real quality product and just an excellent ride all around. So
Mm.
definitely the Phantom for that consumer. And boy, are they going to fly at that size and weight. Whoo, 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 take
Yeah.
off, just like whoop, out of there.
Yeah. And that's the thing too. Like, I mean, the fandom isn't just for one specific kind of person, not one kind of demographic either. I think we've seen people, older people, men and women buying the Phantom, even the Ghost, and maybe kind of surprising our own biases, perhaps. But
For sure.
you would kind of think that the Phantom, the Ghost is for like males, like 30 to 40, maybe, kind of into extreme stuff. But I mean, that can be for any age, any gender, any demographic, really, as long as you're kind of into that more power feeling.
It's true. It's true. We've had customers as young as like 18 or 19 to as old as I think we've gotten up into the 70s in terms of customers buying a scooter at that performance. And for
Yeah.
some people it's mobility concerns. For other people it's just the sheer fun factor that those scooters can
Hmm.
provide. They are
Hmm.
excellent. they're excellent models.
Yeah. And you're only as old as you feel, right?
It's true. And boy, will you feel young on these things.
Oh, yes.
Maybe it'll take years off your life after, but while you're on it,
in a good or bad way, I'm not sure. So yeah, we've kind of covered pretty much the whole spectrum, I guess. Yeah, for most people, like if you're kind of undecided on the scooter, we tend to recommend like the middle of the range, the City, the Explorer, maybe even the Light before when we had it.
yeah.
If you're on the maybe bigger side, or if you're just more experienced with scooters, or if you like just extreme sports, then higher end, the Ghost or the Phantom. And if you're brand new, or you're on maybe the lighter side, or a student, or something like that, then the Air or Air Pro, I guess.
Yeah, I feel like that's a good summary.
Okay, cool. So yeah, I guess it all boils down to, yeah, like price range, what's the intended usage of the scooter, what's going to be most important to them, performance, portability, specs, whatever, size of the rider, size of the scooter. There's lots of things to take into consideration.
For sure, for sure. And then there are other factors that we may not have time to get into here, like braking style, throttle style, um, maintenance on the scooter. All of these are going to play into the decision as well.
Yeah, actually, you bring up a good point there. So a lot of people, we get a lot of questions like, what's the difference between hydraulic and mechanical brakes? Or do I need hydraulic brakes? And neither of us are technicians, but what do you usually say to that?
So we have a little written spiel that we give to people when they reach out about this. But what it boils down to is what are your priorities in braking? As with everything else, it comes down to personal preference. So with hydraulic brakes, you get more braking power. Hydraulic brakes are more powerful than mechanical brakes, generally speaking, and you get less day-to-day maintenance. And so you have to adjust the brakes less on hydraulics, essentially. Yeah. However, with hydraulic brakes, you are going to have more involved repairs when you do need repairs. You with a mechanical braking system, you never have to do a brake bleed. With a hydraulic brakes, probably around once a season, you're going to have to do that.
Really? And just to clarify, what do you mean by brake bleed? Just to clarify.
So a brake bleed is when the hydraulic brake systems have brake fluid in them. They have all of our brakes have mineral oil specifically. And a brake bleed is when you take all of the hydraulic fluid out of a braking system and you replace it with new hydraulic fluid. There are kits that are made to do this. It's basically a set of syringes. You can find a lot of great guides online for mountain bikes specifically. Hydraulic braking systems are generally pretty similar across both bikes and electric scooters. So the basics are all the same. But a brake bleed is when you take all the fluid out, and you do that because occasionally there gets bubbles in the brake line, or sometimes you just need to do it as a preventative measure. You need to do it when you install hydraulic brakes as well. So if you have a new hydraulic brake system, that's how you get fluid into it.
Okay. So yeah, it can definitely be more difficult. Like I don't know how to do a brake bleed, but I guess most local bike shops can even help you with that too, worst case, right?
It depends. Some local bike shops will look at an electric scooter and say no, but it's essentially the same system as a bike's braking system. So any experienced mechanic should be able to take a look at a hydraulic braking system and be able to do that. Now you compare that to mechanical brakes, they require more regular maintenance. You're going to have to, conservatively here, you probably don't actually have to do this, but I would recommend like around once a month going through adjusting, making sure that your brakes are in order. And there are more points of adjustment on mechanical brake systems as well. So you have a whole lot of considerations there. With that said, if you have the option to choose between the two, the mechanical brake options are still going to be good. No one would dare sell a vehicle with mechanical brakes that don't work. If a scooter is too powerful for mechanical brakes, that scooter is going to come with only hydraulic brakes. So if you see a mechanical brake option, you can trust that that is going to be more than enough power to stop your scooter. And in some ways, it's advantageous. I like a mechanical brake system myself because if, say, you have an accident. Accidents happen. It's a vehicle. And you cut the line or you sustain damage to the brake line in some way. On a mechanical brake system, that's much easier to repair than on a hydraulic brake system. A hydraulic brake, that's going to be much more involved as a repair.
And you could probably still take some damage to the mechanical brake line and still have them function mostly, maybe enough to get home. But with an hydraulic line, as soon as that fluid starts coming out, then
Then you're
it's not
done.
going to work. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good point. So not everyone needs the hydraulic brakes.
No, especially if you have a less powerful scooter. I would say that the single motor options, with maybe the exception of the Explorer, if you really want hydraulic brakes, even the Explorer, not necessary. Even the Ghost, not necessary. But it's for people that want that extra braking power. And the other advantage of hydraulic brakes is the braking feel. It feels great when you're braking hydraulic
It is a little bit
brakes.
smoother.
Yeah, it takes less pressure with your hand to be able
Right.
to brake hydraulic brakes.
Yeah.
With that said, the trade-off is more involved maintenance when you do need maintenance.
Right. So that makes sense then, because yeah, pretty much all of our scooters are mechanical disc brakes. But in the past, when we sold the 60-volt Pro and the Pro Ludo, and probably even when we come out with the 60-volt Phantom, well, the past 60-volt Pros, they had the hydraulic brakes automatic, and that's just what we had included, right?
Yep, it was only hydraulic brakes. Same for the Apollo Ultra when we had it. Those scooters of that caliber, rest in peace, the Ultra. But those scooters all came with hydraulic brakes only because we wouldn't.
They're much faster.
Yeah, too powerful for mechanical brakes. But
Right,
kind of the place where the 52-volt Phantom sits, that's where hydraulic brakes start to become mandatory. Like the 52-volt Phantom is the last echelon of scooter before you have to have hydraulic brakes. And we put a lot of effort in the Phantom into making sure that the mechanical brakes more than did their job. And they do. They more than do their job. We both ridden the Phantom. We know this.
Yeah, and again, we would not sell a scooter with mechanical brakes if there were not enough stopping power for the scooter. I don't think that can be said enough.
Yes, we have to emphasize this. We would not sell the scooter if the brakes did not sufficiently stop it.
But we still want to give that option to people who want them, or some people who prefer them because maybe they're comfortable with them, or they just like having that extra braking power, the sensation of the braking, etc.
For sure, it can be helpful.
All right. This makes a lot of sense. This has been very helpful. Hopefully, a lot of people have found this helpful. I think that pretty much covers most of the basics. Is there anything else that you ask that you think that's important? Anything else you want to inform the customers of?
Yeah, for sure. Generally, if I have the time to talk to them about maintenance, I do like to talk to them a bit about maintenance because these are vehicles like any other vehicle. You do have to do regular maintenance on them. You're going to, while you ride electric scooters, have flats. You're going to need to replace the brake pads. Maybe way down the line, you'll have to replace a major component, or God forbid, should an accident or a manufacturer defect happen on your scooter. We do everything we can to make sure that you avoid doing maintenance like this as much as possible. But it's a vehicle. These things can happen, and these things will happen, which is why we have our warranty, which is why we have our Apollo protection plan, why we have all of our video guides starring the one and only.
Not so much me anymore for the repairs. Better John does them, I think.
Yeah, we have.
Who knows what he's doing.
But the reason that we have all of those resources is because we want to make maintenance on the scooter as easy as possible.
Yeah.
But maintenance will need to be done on the scooter at some point. We'll make it as painless as possible. But going into buying an electric scooter, it's like buying any other vehicle. You're going to have to do maintenance on it at some point. And when that time comes, we're here to help however we can.
Wonderful. Sounds good. Well, I appreciate it, Maxwell. Hopefully everyone watching this finds this episode useful and helpful, and in narrowing down your choices, you kind of have an idea of what's going to be important to you. And of course, if you guys can't decide, if you have any other questions, they can also reach out to us, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, we'll always be happy to help and kind of narrow down your choices for you, and be even just a sounding board. Maybe as soon as you start talking to us, you'll know what you want right away, and I think that's happened a couple times.
For sure. And we're available. You can go to our website, apolloscooters.co or .ca if you're in Canada, or email us or reach out through our online forum. We're here to help however we can.
Beautiful. Thanks for joining me, Maxwell, and have a good night, everyone.
Pleasure to be here. You have a good night as well.